Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. One of the devotees posted, you know how everybody posts these little sayings, inspirational sayings. Well, a lot of devotees post them. So this was, I can't remember the exact quote, but it was about gratitude. And I was reminded how valuable it is for devotional life to actually have gratitude, no matter what the situation. She reminded me, I really appreciate that. She posted that she was thanking God for everything. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. Sometimes things can get a little ugly. Hare Krishna, Hare Bol. Thanks for stopping in. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. But everything is coming one way or another from Kṛṣṇa. The good, the bad, and the ugly. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. This was a while ago, but I was shopping in one of the big box stores, a Kmart or something. Where was it? Oh, I think I was living in Tennessee. This was a while ago. And it was Halloween time. And there were aisles dedicated to Halloween stuff. And some of the masks were just horrendous. Like Frankenstein with the stitches and the blood oozing down and the teeth coming out. And they were really like your worst nightmare. And there was two ladies. It looked like a mother and a teenage daughter and a little boy. Now I don't know whose son it was. Maybe the teenage daughter was her little boy, or maybe it was her little brother. I don't know the relationship. And sometimes I find it's dangerous to try to guess relationships if you don't know the people. Like if you go up to a couple and you say, "Oh, what a nice couple you make," and he says, "That's my daughter," and the daughter gets upset because the father's old, So it's dangerous if you don't know the relation. Yes. Anyway, it was a woman, a teenage daughter, and a little boy. Ta-da! And they were somehow related. So the little boy, he was about, maybe 7, and he got away from the two ladies. He went down the aisle with a really ugly masks were, and he put like this gross thing, and it was so big, it wasn't just a mask, it covered half his body because he was just little. This awful, ugly mask. And he went up, and he snuck up behind the two ladies, and he went, "Ah!" And he turned around, and they went, "Ah!" But they knew it was just the little boy that they both loved, putting a mask on, trying to scare him. So Krishna's behind everything, the good, the bad, believe it or not, even the really, really ugly. Maybe not directly, but indirectly, most likely indirectly. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. So I have to keep reminded of these things so that I can see Kṛṣṇa everywhere, that there's nothing separated from Kṛṣṇa. And in this material world, things can be really ugly. People do the most horrible things to each other, to the other living entities. Just terrible, nightmare stuff. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. It's all part of the plan. It's all part of God's plan. To what? To enjoy a loving relationship with His parts and parcels who are created in His image. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa. I was thinking about how we here, we're infinitesimal, we don't like being small. We're part of Kṛṣṇa, parts and parcels. Just like Kṛṣṇa, in quality, we have consciousness, but we don't like being small. And I was thinking, well, I think there's more to it than just not like being small. Because along with being small is vulnerability. And I've just been thinking about this more and more, how there's a lot of small particles, and they're very happy. They're eternally liberated, they're enjoying a relationship with Kṛṣṇa, Radha Kṛṣṇa. They're engaged in devotional service. They're completely sheltered, they're blissful, they're in ecstasy, and they don't have any problem with being small. But there is a category of these small particles, these jivas, that along with being small is also vulnerability. Created that way. Created that way. And so being vulnerable, we don't like being vulnerable. We want to be in control. When we come in contact with the material energy, then we can become very much entangled and forgetful. So why is all of this going on? Why did Kṛṣṇa create these teeny tiny little particles? Why are we there in the first place? If Kṛṣṇa is the supreme enjoyer, why are we there in the first place? Why did He create something vulnerable? And then why did He create all the material energy and everything too? So they can become victimized. I've heard devotees who have seen like this get angry at Kṛṣṇa. And when I first looked at it, I got angry too, but you get a little more insight into, what's going on. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare. This is part of Kṛṣṇa's pastimes. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa. And I was thinking about it, if somebody has some children, and most of the children that they have are fine. They grow up, they're able to take care of themselves nicely, and they have children. But sometimes they'll have a child that's a little incapable or has extraordinary vulnerabilities. They need a lot of special extra attention and care because they're vulnerable. So it's actually kind of a advantageous position to be so weak and easily distracted. We have to always call on Kṛṣṇa, and he has to give us special attention because we're a little retarded like that. Hare Kṛṣṇa. What to speak if someone has a son or a daughter who strays away. This is from the Christian culture, the prodigal son. And then he comes back. Now, the father had other sons and they stayed with him and everything was fine. And then the prodigal son wandered off, got into a lot of trouble, became destitute, and finally returned home to get shelter and relief. And the father was so happy. My son has returned. Have a feast! Let's have a feast! My son is back. So, it's part of Krishna's, he's the enjoyer, and this is very enjoyable for him, that these vulnerable, insignificant, weak little entities, they finally take shelter. It's very nice for Krishna. I'm really happy. So, I just have to accept it, that's the way I was created. A little retarded. But it's like the more I accept the fact that this is it, I'm a vulnerable living entity. In the spiritual world, they're not vulnerable. They're small too. They're very small, but they're not vulnerable. But I'm in a category of jivas that needs this extra special care and attention. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. I think there's something else too that, with this being small, that it's not so much even, well, it is kind of, because Krishna's, this enviousness of Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, but I also think it's wanting to be Radharani, to push Radha out of the picture. But she's big too. Krishna's big, Radha is big, and we're little. So, I can't be Kṛṣṇa, I'm unhappy about that. And I can't be Radha either, I'm unhappy about that. Hare Kṛṣṇa. And you have to take shelter of Radha Kṛṣṇa. Yeah, don't like that. So, I'm looking at Krishna's incarnation as Chaitanya. He's both Radha and Kṛṣṇa in one. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. Here's your chants, little ones. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare. You're not going to become big, and you're not going to become perfect. but you can't find shelter. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. I don't know if I always get everything exactly right, but I sure do like to look at this stuff. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And I'm pretty confident that at some point, I'll either read the exact confirmation, or I'll read something that corrects what needs to be corrected, or I'll hear someone share something, or anyway. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna. I'm still waiting to get insight into how King Satyavrata got Matsya, the fish incarnation, out of the lake and into the ocean when Matsya was too big for a lake. I'm still waiting for that. I asked the devotee yesterday if they had any information, and they said, well, two things comes to mind. First of all, this is all speculation. They might have dug a big channel and just floated him down the channel. And I said, no, I don't think so. He's too big for the lake. And then the devotee said, well, they do everything by mantra. They had very powerful mantras in those days. So maybe he got all his Brahmin advisors together and they researched a mantra that could transport. I said, well, that's possible. So I'm still waiting to hear how he actually got Matsya out of the lake. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Now, a devotee was saying something the other day about how everyone's talking about something, or looking at something, or researching something, but a lot of times it's politics, or it's other things, usually politics, but other things. He said, but if we use that time to hear about Krishna, remember Krishna, talk about Krishna, then that time spent is actually an eternal investment in Krishna consciousness. And that adds up, that accumulates. The other things, it's like wasting the investing. It feels good for a minute or two, but then it's gone. It gets used up. It's like a consumerism. You consume it and it's gone. In Krishna consciousness, you taste it, you relish it, and you consume it. But it's still there. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Just some thoughts. All right. How about Krishna Bhatt? Summary study of the 10th canto, Srimad Bhagavatam by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhakti Vedanta Swami Prabhupada. This is all pastimes, and Prabhupada has sprinkled in purports He reads like a story, but he's sprinkled in commentary to keep us on track. That this isn't just mundane literature. It's not just like fairy tales, or these are actually the workings and the goings-on of spiritual personalities. These are spiritual truths in action and interaction with each other and Kṛṣṇa. Straight from the spiritual world. So he mixes in purports, make sure that we can stay focused on that. It's chapter 82. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Draupadī meets the queens of Lord Kṛṣṇa. There were many visitors who came to see Kṛṣṇa. This is in Dwarka. And among them were the Pandavas, headed by King Yudhisthira. Oh, no, they're still in, they're still at Kṛṣṇa. And this is the time when there's a full solar eclipse, a very rare one, and everyone's come from all over everywhere. The sages, the saints, the demigods, everybody's there at Kṛṣṇa before the battle. And Kṛṣṇa has just met with the gopis and helped them get a grasp on his relationship with them and some relief from too much despair. And he's reassured them that he's always with them. This is a mood of love, and he's always with them. Now, Draupadī meets the queens of Kṛṣṇa. There were many visitors who came to see Kṛṣṇa, and among them were the Pandavas, headed by Yudhisthira. After talking with the gopis and bestowing upon them the greatest benediction, Lord Kṛṣṇa came to welcome King Yudhisthira and other relatives who had come to see him. He first of all inquired from them whether their situation was auspicious. Actually, there's no question of ill fortune for anyone who sees the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Yet, when Lord Kṛṣṇa, as a matter of etiquette, inquired from King Yudhisthira about his welfare, the king became very happy by such a reception and began to address the Lord thus. My dear Lord Kṛṣṇa, great personalities and devotees in full Kṛṣṇa consciousness always think of your lotus feet and remain fully satisfied by drinking the nectar of transcendental bliss. The nectar which they constantly drink sometimes comes out of their mouths and sprinkles on others as the narration of your transcendental activities. Hare Kṛṣṇa. My dear Lord Kṛṣṇa, great personalities and devotees in full Kṛṣṇa consciousness always think of your lotus feet, remain fully satisfied by drinking the nectar of transcendental bliss. This is the actual process of hearing and chanting. Drinking the nectar and tasting it, relishing it. And the nectar which they constantly drink sometimes comes out of their mouths and is sprinkled on others as the narration of your transcendental activities. This nectar coming from the mouth of a devotee is so powerful that if one is fortunate enough to have the opportunity to drink it, he immediately becomes freed from the continuous journey of birth and death. Our material existence is caused by our forgetfulness of your personality. But, fortunately, the darkness of forgetfulness is immediately dissipated if one is privileged to hear about your glories. Therefore, my dear Lord, where is the possibility of ill fortune for one who is constantly engaged in hearing your glorious activities? So Kṛṣṇa just asked him, as a matter of etiquette, he says, is your situation auspicious? And this is Yudhishthira's reply. Oh my God, he's like pouring out Hare Kṛṣṇa. His gratitude. Yudhishthira continues, since we're fully surrendered unto you and have no shelter other than your lotus feet, we're always confident of our good fortune. My dear Lord, you are the ocean of unlimited knowledge and transcendental bliss. The result of the action of mental concoction is to exist in the three temporary phases of material life. So these are the three temporary phases of material life. Wakefulness, which isn't really wakefulness at all. Wakefulness, sleep, and deep sleep. But these conditions cannot exist in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. All such reactions are invalidated by practice of Kṛṣṇa consciousness. You are the ultimate destination of all liberated persons. Out of your independent will only, you have descended on this earth by the use of your own internal potency, Yogamaya. And in order to reestablish the Vedic principles of life, you have appeared just like an ordinary human being. Since you are the Supreme Person, there cannot therefore be any ill luck for one who has fully surrendered unto you. Kṛṣṇa, you have descended on this earth by the use of Yogamaya. It's an internal potency, Yogamaya. So Maya is illusion. Yogamaya. It's not material illusion, it's actually spiritual illusion. Kṛṣṇa, who can be a mother of Kṛṣṇa? Kṛṣṇa is the source of everything. Who can be the mother of Kṛṣṇa? But with Yogamaya, Mother Yasoda can treat Kṛṣṇa like her child. Vasudeva and Devaki, they can consider Kṛṣṇa their child. So this is an internal potency of Kṛṣṇa's. It's an illusion. But it's not a material illusion. It's an eternal illusion. I'm just looking at this. I don't know if I've got it right or not, but it's fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa. So everything's an illusion. The spiritual illusion, Yogamaya, is eternal. Oh, Kṛṣṇa! Kṛṣṇa! Woo! I don't know. I need some clarification on these. I shouldn't even read this with my mind. Kṛṣṇa. Okay. Just read it. Okay. You have appeared just like an ordinary human being. Since you are the Supreme Person, there cannot therefore be any ill luck for one who has fully surrendered unto you. Yeah, the danger is to consider that actually everything is impersonal. That's what the impersonalists conclude. Everything is illusion, but they don't accept that there is a spiritual illusion. They think that everything is just a material illusion. Even the form of Kṛṣṇa is an illusion. That's the danger. Well, everything is an illusion, but it's not material illusion, it's Yogamaya. For what reason? For pastimes with the Lord. That's what they don't accept. They see everything is illusion. From the platform of everything is material, is spiritual. So all there is either spiritual or material. And spiritual, material means illusory forms, illusory activities, temporary. So spiritual has to be the opposite of that. No illusion. Which means no Yogamaya, no personality of Godhead, no spiritual forms, no pastimes, no activities, just spirit. Forever. Like nothing. Everything but nothing. Hare Krishna. Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa. Hare Hare. Oh, how attractive. Let me go there immediately. Hare Krishna. Now, Prabhupada continues, when Lord Kṛṣṇa was busy meeting various kinds of visitors, and while they were engaged in offering prayers to the Lord, the female members of the Kuru dynasty and the Yadu dynasty took the opportunity of meeting with one another and engaging in talk of Lord Kṛṣṇa's transcendental pastimes. The first inquiry was made by Draupadī to the wives of Lord Kṛṣṇa. She addressed them. So this is Draupadī. She is the queen of the Pandavas. All 5 Pandavas are her husbands. So she's really something else. She can have 5 husbands like that. So this is Draupadī. And she's addressing, she says, my dear Rukmini, Bhadra, Jambavati, Satya, Satyabhama, Kalindi, Saibya, Lakshmana, Rohini, and all other wives of Lord Kṛṣṇa. Will you please let us know how Lord Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, accepted you as his wives and married you in pursuance of the marriage ceremonies of ordinary human beings. Now, in previous chapters, this was described in great detail, but here we're getting a summary. We're going to summarize this. To this question, the chief of the queens, Rukmini, replied, my dear Draupadī, it was practically a settled fact that princes like Jarasandha and others wanted me to marry King Shishupal. And as is usual, all the princes present during the marriage ceremony were prepared with their armor and weapons to fight with any rival who dared stop the marriage. But the Supreme Personality of Godhead kidnapped me the way a lion takes away a lamb from the flock. This was not, however, a very wondrous act for Lord Kṛṣṇa, because anyone who claims to be a very great hero or king within this world is subordinate to the lotus feet of the Lord. All the kings touch their helmets to the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa. My dear Draupadī, it is my eternal desire that life after life I may be engaged in the service of Lord Kṛṣṇa, who is the reservoir of all pleasure and beauty. This is my only desire and ambition in life. So that's the prayer the pure devotees pray. My dear Draupadī, it is my eternal desire that life after life I may be engaged in the service of Lord Kṛṣṇa. After this, Satyabhama began to speak, and she said, my dear Draupadī, my father was very much afflicted on the death of his brother Praseena, and he falsely accused Lord Kṛṣṇa of killing his brother and stealing the Shamataka jewel, which had actually been taken by Jambavan. Lord Kṛṣṇa, in order to establish his pure character, fought with Jambavan and rescued the Shamantaka jewel, which was later delivered to my father. My father was very much ashamed and sorry for accusing Lord Kṛṣṇa of his brother's death. After getting back the Shamantaka jewel, he thought it wise to rectify his mistake. So although he had promised others my hand in marriage, he submitted the jewel and myself at the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa, and thus I was accepted as his maidservant and wife. After this, Draupadī replied to Draupadi's question. She said, I'm thinking in the Bhagavatam, where this appears in verse, it probably reads like a song. These different verses read like a song. I'm thinking, I'm going to take a look at that at some point. After this, Draupadī replied to Draupadi's question. She said, My dear Draupadī, when Lord Kṛṣṇa attacked my father Jambavan, the king of the Rikshas, my father did not know that Lord Kṛṣṇa was his former master, Lord Ramachandra, the husband of Sita. Not knowing the identity of Lord Kṛṣṇa, my father remained continuously engaging with him in fighting for 27 days. After this period, when he became very tired and fatigued, he could understand that since no one but Lord Ramachandra could defeat him, his opponent, Lord Kṛṣṇa, must be the same Lord Ramachandra. He thus came to his senses and not only immediately returned the Shamantaka jewel, but in order to satisfy the Lord, he presented me to him to become his wife. In this way, I was married to Lord Kṛṣṇa, and thus my desire to remain life after life as a servitor of Kṛṣṇa was fulfilled. After this, Kalindi said, My dear Draupadī, I was engaged in great austerities and penances in order to get Lord Kṛṣṇa as my husband. When Lord Kṛṣṇa became aware of this fact, he very kindly came to me along with his friend Arjuna and accepted me as his wife. Lord Kṛṣṇa then took me away from the bank of Yamuna, and since then I have been engaged in the house of Lord Kṛṣṇa as a sweeper, and the Lord is treating me as his wife. After this, Mitravendra said, My dear Draupadī, there was a great assembly of princes at my Swayamvara ceremony. Lord Kṛṣṇa was also present at that meeting, and he accepted me as his maidservant by defeating all the princes present there. He immediately took me away to Dwarka, exactly as a lion takes a deer from a pack of dogs. When I was thus taken away by Lord Kṛṣṇa, my brothers wanted to fight with him, and later on they were defeated. Thus, my desire to become the maidservant of Kṛṣṇa, life after life, was fulfilled. After this, Satya addressed Draupadī in this way. My dear Draupadī, my father arranged for an assembly for my Swayamvara, the personal selection of a husband, and in order to test the strength and heroism of the prospective bridegrooms, my father stipulated that they each fight with his 7 ferocious bulls, which had long serpentine horns. Many heroic prospective bridegrooms tried to defeat the bulls, but unfortunately they were all severely struck, and they had to return to their homes as defeated invalids. When Lord Kṛṣṇa came and fought with the bulls, they were just like playthings for him. He captured the bulls and roped each one of them by their nostrils. Thus they came under his control, just like a goat. Small kids come very easily under the control of children. My father became very pleased and married me with Lord Kṛṣṇa in great pomp, giving as my dowry many divisions of soldiers, horses, chariots, and elephants, along with hundreds of maidservants. Thus, Lord Kṛṣṇa brought me to his capital city, Dwarka. On the way, he was also assaulted by many princes, but Lord Kṛṣṇa defeated all of them, and thus I have the privilege of serving his lotus feet as a maidservant. After this, Bhadra began to speak. She said, My dear Draupadī, Lord Kṛṣṇa is the son of my maternal uncle. Lord Kṛṣṇa is the son of my maternal uncle. So he's a cousin. Fortunately, I became attracted to his lotus feet. When my father understood these feelings of mine, he personally arranged for my marriage, inviting Lord Kṛṣṇa to marry me and giving me in dowry 1 akshahini, or division of armed forces, along with many maidservants and other royal paraphernalia. I do not know whether I shall be able to have the shelter of Lord Kṛṣṇa life after life, but still I pray to the Lord that wherever I may take my birth, I may not forget my relationship with his lotus feet. Then Lakshmana said, "My dear Queen, many times I have heard the great sage Narada glorifying the pastimes of Lord Kṛṣṇa. I became attracted to the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa when I heard Narada say that the goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, was also attracted to his lotus feet. Since then, I have always been thinking of him, and thus my attraction for him has increased. My dear Queen, my father was very affectionate toward me. When he understood that I was attracted to Kṛṣṇa, he devised a plan. His plan was like that advised by your father. During the Swayamvara, the prospective bridegrooms had to pierce the eyes of a fish with their arrows. The difference between the competition in your Swayamvara and mine was that in your case the fish was hanging openly in the ceiling, in clear view. But in my case, the fish was covered with a cloth and could be only seen by the reflections of the cloth in a pot of water. That was the special feature of my Swayamvara. The news of this device was spread all over the world, and when the princes heard of it, they arrived at my father's capital from all directions, fully equipped with armor and guided by their military instructors. Each one of them desired to win me as his wife, and one after another they raised the bow and arrow which was left there for piercing the fish. So it was a contest to win the prize. And the princes each one wanted to prove that they were the best. So all the princes were coming. Oh great, we're going to have a contest, we're going to win a prize. Many could not even join the bowstring of the two ends of the bow, and without attempting to pierce the fish, they simply left the bow as it was and went away. Some, with great difficulty, drew the string from one end to the other, and being unable to tie the other end, they were suddenly knocked down by the spring-like bow. My dear Queen, you will be surprised to know that at my Swayamvara meeting, there were many famous kings and heroes present. Heroes like Jarasandha, Ambasta, Shishupal, Bhimasena, Duryodhana, and Kṛṣṇa were, of course, able to string the bow, but they could not pierce the fish because it was covered, and they could not trace out the reflection. The celebrated hero of the Pandavas, Arjuna, was able to see the reflection of the fish on the water, but although with great caution he traced out the location of the fish and shot an arrow, he did not pierce the fish in the right spot. His arrow at least touched the fish, so he proved himself better than all the other princes. So what's with this with a fish hanging? Is something fishy here? Why are they hanging? They have to pierce the eye of a fish. Hare Kṛṣṇa. You don't want to wait too long because make this contest speed up here, and fishes kind of smell bad after a while. I always wondered, why are they hanging a fish? There's got to be a meaning to it somewhere. Okay, put that on the list of why. Lance. Says he's lying down with his earbuds and he's resting and he's listening closely. Hare Kṛṣṇa, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Okay, back to the contest. All the princes who had tried to pierce the target were disappointed, being baffled in their attempts, and some candidates had even left the place without making an attempt. But when at last Lord Kṛṣṇa stood up, took up the bow, he was able to tie the bowstring very easily, just as a child plays with a toy. He placed the bow, and looking only once at the reflection of the fish in the water, he shot the arrow, and the pierced fish immediately fell down. This victory of Lord Kṛṣṇa was accomplished at noon, during the moment called Abhijit, which is astronomically calculated as auspicious. At that time, the vibration of Jai, Jai was heard all over the world, and from the sky came sounds of drums beat by the denizens of heaven. Great demigods were overwhelmed with joy and began to shower flowers on the earth. So noon is considered auspicious. And that particular moment, Abhijit, noon, the Brahmins, they chant their Gayatri Gantra, they're supposed to chant at noon. They chant in the morning, sunrise, noon, and then sunset. So that's a special time, sun, noon. So this is the Princess Lakshmana. But she has a really long story. The others just give like she's telling the whole thing in detail. So she continues. At that time, I entered the arena of competition, and the ankle bells on my legs were sounding very melodiously as I walked. This is the prize. I was nicely dressed with new silken garments. Flowers were decorating my hair, and because of Lord Kṛṣṇa's victory, I was in ecstatic joy and smiling very pleasingly. I was carrying in my hands a golden necklace bedecked with jewels, which was glittering at intervals. My curling hair encircled my face, which was shining with a bright luster due to the reflection of my various rings. My eyes blinking, I first of all observed all the princes present, and when I reached my lord, I very slowly placed the golden necklace on his neck. As I have already informed you, from the very beginning, my mind had been attracted by Lord Kṛṣṇa, and thus I considered the garlanding of the Lord to be my great victory. As soon as I placed my garland on the neck of the Lord, there sounded immediately the combined vibration of mridangas, patahas, conch shells, drums, kettle drums, and other instruments, causing a tumultuous sound. And while the music played, expert male and female dancers began to dance, and singers began to sing sweetly. Wow. Hare Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya. My dear Draupadī, when I accepted Lord Kṛṣṇa as my worshipful husband, and he also accepted me as his maidservant, there was a tumultuous roaring among the disappointed princes. All of them became very agitated because of their lusty desires. But without caring for them, my husband, in his form as four-handed Narayan, immediately took me on his chariot, which was drawn by 4 excellent horses. Hare Kṛṣṇa. It's not two-handed Krishna play, it's four-armed Narayan. Krishna. Expecting opposition from the princes, he armored himself, took up his bow named Saranga, but our celebrated driver, Daruka, drove the beautiful chariot, without a moment's delay toward the city of Dwarka. Thus, in the presence of all the princes, I was carried away very quickly, exactly as a deer is carried away from the flock by a lion. Some of the princes, however, wanted to check our progress, and thus, equipped with proper weapons, they opposed us, just as dogs tried to oppose the progressive march of a lion. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And dogs will chase after something, like the ice cream man's truck, or a kid on a bicycle. So here, the dogs tried to oppose the progressive march of a lion. At that time, due to the arrows released by the saranga bow of Lord Kṛṣṇa, some of the princes were cut on their left hands. Some of them lost their legs, some lost their heads and their lives, and others fled from the battlefield. The Supreme Personality of Godhead then entered the most celebrated city of the universe, Dwarka. When he entered the city, he appeared like the shining sun. The whole city of Dwarka was profusely decorated on that occasion. There were so many flags, festoons, and gates all over Dwarka that the sunshine could not even enter the city. I've already told you that my father was very much affectionate to me, so when he saw that my desire was fulfilled by getting Lord Kṛṣṇa as my husband, in great happiness he began to distribute to friends and relatives various kinds of gifts, such as valuable dresses, ornaments, bedsteads, sitting carpets. Lord Kṛṣṇa is always self-sufficient. Yet my father, out of his own accord, offered my husband a dowry consisting of riches, soldiers, elephants, chariots, horses, and many rare and valuable weapons. He presented all these to the Lord with great enthusiasm. My dear Queen, at that time I could guess that in my previous life I must have performed some wonderfully pious activity, and as a result I can, in this life, be one of the maidservants in the house of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Yeah, it's described, and I've heard many times, I don't know where it's written, that for those devotees who engage in devotional service to Kṛṣṇa and actually become purified enough to actually become. I don't know how purified a devotee has to be I'm pretty sure they have to be a pure devotee and become a pure devotee in this life in order to not have to take birth again. See, if a person doesn't make it in this life and they still have a lot of material stuff, but they're surrendering to Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa explains in the Bhagavad Gita, they have to take birth again because you can't have impurities to go to the spiritual world. So they take birth again, but they get a good birth where they can make more progress and maybe finish up in that life. Of course, in Kali Yuga, you don't want to drag your feet because Hare Krishna. This is just the beginning of Kali Yuga. It'll get pretty good for a little while, but it's still Kali Yuga, and then it really goes to hell. But they get birth like in a rich family, so they don't have to worry about scraping for a living, or a highly elevated religious family, or a family of Vaishnavas, where they can make further progress. Don't quite make it in this life. But someone who actually becomes pure, a pure devotee, then they go to where Kṛṣṇa is appearing in the material world. He's appearing in some universe. He's always appearing somewhere. They get to go there and get further training in devotional service. Which makes me wonder, like when Kṛṣṇa appeared here, all these different persons who were taking part in Kṛṣṇa's pastimes, than previous life. They had made enough advancement to actually enter into when he's appearing personally. And just reading that kind of reminded me when Lakshmana says, "My dear Queen, I could guess that in my previous life I must have performed some wonderfully pious activity," more than pious. Pious means heavenly planets, more than pious. "And as a result, I can in this life be one of the maidservants in the house of the Supreme Personality of Godhead." That confirms it. In my previous life, now I have the opportunity to make further connection with Kṛṣṇa when he's actually personally appearing, whatever that universe is. When all the principal queens of Lord Kṛṣṇa had finished their statements, Rohini, as the representative of the other 16,000 queens, began to narrate the incident of their becoming wives of Kṛṣṇa. So this is Rukmini speaking. "My dear Queen, when Bhaumasura was conquering all the world, he collected wherever possible all the beautiful daughters of the kings and kept us arrested within his palace. When news of our imprisonment reached Lord Kṛṣṇa, he fought with Bhaumasura, and released us. Lord Kṛṣṇa killed Bhaumasura and all his soldiers, and although he had no need to accept even one wife, he nevertheless, by our request, married all 16,000 of us." Yeah, the way the culture was, those women's lives were ruined. No one would marry them because they had been touched and kidnapped by this demon Bhaumasura. So no one. These are princesses in the royal family. No prince would want one of these women. So they requested Kṛṣṇa, "Please, we have no other shelter. No one will marry us. You have to marry us, please. Kṛṣṇa, we have no other shelter." He nevertheless, by our request, married all 16,000 of us. "My dear Queen, our only qualification was that we were always thinking of the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa, which is the way to release oneself from the bondage of repeated birth and death. My dear Queen Draupadī, please take it from us that we are not after any opulence such as kingdom, empire, or a position of heavenly enjoyment. We do not want to enjoy such material opulences, nor do we desire to achieve yogic perfections, nor the exalted post of Lord Brahma." Yeah, I remember hearing, any jiva soul can become Lord Brahma in a universe somewhere. And I believe I heard the requirement is 100 births as a pious king, perfectly pious king, in the mode of goodness, totally, no mistakes. King Riga, he was a very, very pious king in the mode of goodness, and he made one tiny little mistake in it. He still went to the heavenly planets after he was giving Krishna's mercy, and the whole thing was straightened out. But 100 perfectly mode of goodness, pious births as a king, and can take the post of Lord Brahma if you want. We do not want to enjoy such material opulences, nor do we desire to achieve yogic perfections, nor the exalted post of Lord Brahma, nor do we want any of the different kinds of liberations, Shalokya, Sharsti, Samipya, Sayuja. I forget what they are, but one of them is to have the form of Kṛṣṇa, the other is to, I don't know, they're different, be on the same planet with Kṛṣṇa. So they don't want any of the liberations. We are not at all attracted by any of these opulences. Our only ambition is to bear on our heads, life after life, the dust particles attached to the lotus feet of Lord Kṛṣṇa. What are these dust particles? To bear on our heads the dust particles. Now Lord Chaitanya prays to be a particle of dust at the Lord's lotus feet. What are these dust particles? The goddess of fortune, I read this and I get more questions than answers. The goddess of fortune also desired to keep that dust on her breast along with the fragrant saffron. Well, I don't know. I want to know what that dust is. We simply desire this dust. Yeah, well, I want to know what it is. They want it, but what is it? Which accumulates under the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa as he travels on the land of Vrindavan as a cowherd boy. Okay, so there's your answer. It's from when he's traveling as a cowherd boy in Vrindavan. The gopis especially, and also the cowherd men, and the Aborigine tribeswomen, always desire to become the grass and straw on the street of Vrindavan, to be trampled on by the lotus feet of Kṛṣṇa. My dear Queen, we wish to remain as such, life after life, without any other desire. Thus end the Bhaktivedanta purport of the 82nd chapter of Kṛṣṇa. Draupadī meets the queens of Kṛṣṇa. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Oh, Kṛṣṇa, 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 Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Kṛṣṇa, Kṛṣṇa, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama. The dust that accumulates on the lotus feet, the dust, as he travels on the land of Vrindavan, the dust. The little particles that cling to his feet. Insignificant dust that clings to his feet. Lord Chaitanya prays he wants to become one of those little dust particles that clings to the lotus feet. He wants to be one of those little clingy dust particles. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Krishna, Govinda, Hare Om, Chaitanya.